Okay. We are recording now, and I'm going to go ahead and read the policy. Okay. Thank you for joining the City of Kingston's Arts Commission at our monthly meeting. Today is January 14th. My name is Adrielle Farr, Director of Art and Cultural Affairs for the City of Kingston and organizer for today's virtual meeting. Before we begin our meeting, we'd like to go over a few meeting guidelines to help us navigate this system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the press and public remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. As organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Commission members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city's website at a later date. If you are not included on the agenda, please be respectful and courteous to our commission members by remaining muted. If you have any audio issues, please send a text message to the following number, 845-399-9072. As the organizer for today's meeting, I reserve the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance Arts Commission Chair Susan Lin, Arts Commission members Ann Bailey, Peter Criswell, Laura Giordano, Maria Elena Ferrer, Ione, Linda Marston-Reed, Ward Mintz, and Lynn Woods. And our guests today include Alessandra Larson, Garrett Sager, and Maya Frieden. Thank you for your patience during these difficult times, and on behalf of the City of Kingston, I wish you and your family good health. I now turn the floor over to Chair Susan Lin, who will call the meeting to order.
Yep, I have to unmute myself. Okay, so did everybody get a chance to review the minutes? And would anybody like to make a motion to accept?
I just had a note about the minutes. I don't know how detailed we want them to be, but in the part that talks about the Newburgh Library and the Harriet Tubman statue, at the end, we mentioned that Margie Menard was part of that meeting, but she also said that they had the funding for such a project and that September was a possible month. And we also talked about Juneteenth. So maybe that's too much detail, but I just thought that is information that I thought is helpful, that we talked about September and that she said they had the funding or they could get the funding.
Okay.
Did she say they had the funding? Really?
I don't. She said, I'm not, she said, maybe, I thought she said they could take care. Well, if we're not even clear, then I don't want to confuse it.
Well, I'll go back and review the meeting online. And if that is the case, I'll add that to the minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal, but I just thought,
it's worthwhile.
Mention, why not, Otherwise, we're left forgetting we talked about it.
It's good because we possibly have forgotten a lot.
Right, and also we talked about Juneteenth as a possible tie-in. So anyway, I'm just mentioning, because I took a couple notes and that's all. Possible opportunities for the Tubman.
All right, so I'll go back and review that. And any other changes or additions?
With Lynn's amendments in mind, I would move that we accept the minutes. Second that.
Okay, anybody opposed? All right. So the Mellon Foundation update. And we had a meeting on Monday with Anne and Linda and Ward and who else was there? Maria Elena. Yes, okay. I'm looking at everybody's faces and like, who was there?
Whose background could be louder, to draw attention to herself after
right. all. So we bounced around a couple of ideas. Just, there are three particular missions that the Mellon Foundation would like you to pick one to address, of which are fund new monuments, memorials, or historic storytelling spaces. contextualize existing monuments or memorials through installations, research, and education, and relocate existing monuments or memorials. I think we were all in agreement that relocating the existing monuments or memorials was off of our list, and that we would somehow combine the two first criteria into what we would want to do. We talked about possibly doing something at Academy Green that might be performative, light shows, sound installations. We talked about the need for having a project director / curator, getting involved. We'd like to have a meeting on February 8th that will invite Harambe, African Roots Library, the Rear Center, Friends of Historic Kingston, Ward's friend Myra Young Armstead.
Armstead.
Okay, Armstead.
Armstead.
So, it was a very basic grassroots kind of conversation. Let's just get the conversation started. We talked about possibly developing an app. There was the thought of Sojourner Truth, but is Sojourner Truth somewhat oversaturated? That we have, a lot of memorial to her, and that perhaps someone that we don't know about. Someone suggested possibly creating a monument to Ben Wigfall. So there were a lot of ideas that were bounced around. I spoke with Sarah Litvin today. They are looking to apply for this as well. We talked about maybe we would be able to collaborate, that, it's always great when funding institutions like to see collaboration, so that if we were to do something with Academy Green, that we would have a downtown portion and an uptown portion, or if we wanted to do something around, the African Roots Library and Ben Wigfall, having the two downtown areas tied together. Sarah had talked about what they're looking at is primarily storytelling, of using the bakery as telling the stories of immigrant kind of thing. And I could see, that tying in with what we might like to do. So it's, it is really a very preliminary start. What we would have to do is create a 300-word essay. Is an essay really 300 words? As to why this and why now. So Sarah's going to do a preliminary blurb about what she wants to do. She said, so I can at least see how many characters I can fit in there. But I'll put together a meeting for February 8th with, and if you feel that there's anybody that should be invited, please send me the names and contact information. Yes, Ward.
One person who we talked about also at the meeting was Susan Stesson-Cohn, whose recent book was Runaway Slaves.
Peter?
Just a quick question. Maybe I missed it somewhere in the email chain, but is this a rolling grant application or is there deadlines?
Yes. It's 5 year. It's a 5-year initiative, $250 million. Average grant is about 250,000.
Mm-hmm.
So Ione?
Oh, yeah. I first of all, I want to apologize. I was sitting here at the meeting, but I thought it was a different time. It has something to do with eyes and different screens. Sorry about that. I don't have that screen on me tonight. I just want to say that in my reading of the guidelines, I don't see this as an either or for an application. We're not applying anyway. It's not an application yet. It's just telling them our vision. My sense is that that we could encompass all of those elements, each of those elements actually, in a proposal. And I think it might be, it could be to our advantage to think bigger than Academy Green, just Academy Green, and to really understand that this organization is capable of assisting us on a citywide basis, so that there's a revisioning of the city in terms and its connection to Academy Green, or its colonial history, shall we say, all of those things. So I think it would. I don't think we should think small on this one. Yeah.
I want to respond to what you said, Ione. I think we do have to be careful about when a foundation presents what it wants to see, that we don't go too far afield. We also just smack us and rip up the pages. But I also want to agree with you. For example, when I was talking to Myra Young Armstead yesterday, for those of you who don't remember, she's the foremost expert on the history of Black people in the Hudson Valley. And we were talking about Sojourner Truth, and we both agreed that, if let's say we were to commission a Sojourner Truth sculpture for Kingston, it should probably be at the courthouse or across the street, at the Old Dutch Cemetery, given the connection between pleading for her son and the courthouse. So I think that the planning meeting will be an important moment to go through a lot of these issues, and to make sure that we are looking carefully at the RFP.
Right. Well, I think I see it. I don't think that it's going afield is what, and when I say that, I think that storytelling, re-understanding our statues and monuments, what monuments are for here, all of that can be a part of a new vision. I think they're very interested
Absolutely.
in newness.
Absolutely.
Elizabeth says, we're trying to think really broadly and interestingly about what monuments are.
And you're going to be sending personal notes.
Well, yeah, in a way I am, yes. She says people will come to us with amazing and visionary ideas of things they want to create. So it's not about statues, and it's just statues.
Exactly.
And some of the work is recontextualization. Then she speaks of this, the projections, the George Floyd projections and Black Lives Matter projections on the statue of Robert E. Lee. And she was very excited about that. She said they hadn't funded that, but they would have loved to have funded it. So it's efforts to change the concept of memorials that we'll support. So I'm thinking outside, that's kind of why I keep saying to think bigger, but think with a vision for the future, because they speak about the future. So it's not just about re-understanding the past, but it's about the future of the city. So I think all of that gives us leeway here, and not to think about just a new statue.
Fine.
Lynn?
Yeah, I want to say two things. My first question is, with the Rear Center, since this is related to monuments, what monument how is Sarah's grant application related to monuments?
Oh, the
She
building
see-
itself. Oh,
She sees the rear center itself exactly
Oh,
as,
okay, I didn't understand that. And my second point is just following up on what Ione was talking about, is that I think some of you were at the Black Lives Matter walk that was before COVID. And there was an installation of photographs of all the people who've been killed by police, on Academy Green. I mean, there were like dozens of these photos set up. It was an installation. And I think it's interesting that Academy Green has become this kind of center of Black Lives Matter in Kingston. And maybe that's something that we can pull on, that it sort of has become this impromptu sort of social activism site in the shadow of these monuments. And I also wanted to say, and I'm sorry that I was planning to go to the meeting, but I got back late and missed it. I'm sorry about that. And the other thing is that I love the idea of the contextualization and reaching out to the community, projects that really get input from the educate and get community response rather than just something static that's put out there. I'd love to really interact with the community on this one and make the statues kind of come alive in today's context. I know that sounds kind of vague, but the Black Lives Matter made me think about that. It is a living site. The site has evolved into this totally different kind of thing. And it was just fascinating to see these speakers, right underneath the Stuyvesant statue. So I just think there's something there that we can draw on that's already happening at that site that could be exciting. I know that sounds vague, but there's just some thoughts.
That's very exciting to me, if I may say so.
well, that's what you had said initially, Ione, was multimedia presentations on the Academy Green, which I thought was quite inspiring.
Yeah, I think we could do project some very exciting things. I don't know if we have to say these things before we have the meeting. It's good that we're talking about it now before we're meeting with the community. But I also thought that they would be interested in including this community outreach element, getting input from the community as a part of what we want assistance for as well. So that's why I said two-tiered, that it would be a first tier would be helping in some innovative way to really get this community input and conversations between communities.
okay.
So that's what I was thinking, some new and really interesting ways of getting people together to talk about these things. And then out of that comes the newness of a structure, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Linda, did you have something to say?
Just in terms of reporting back, what we all realized as we were sitting around the table was we wanted to make sure that this initiative is explored and led by the very people that we're hoping to represent more of in Kingston. And we wanted to get them at the planning table. And so, that first meeting that we had was just kind of a discussion point. And then we were making lists of people we know. So for all those who couldn't attend the meeting, we want to make sure that we get like a good work group together. And we wanted to make sure it wasn't too big because we actually want to get some work done and some decisions made. So some of the names I wrote down, Ty Wilson, Rita Worthington, Erica Brown, Taylor Brock. Those are a few that
Also maybe Frank Waters, because he's worked a lot with youth.
Oh, Frank.
Oh yeah, Frank was in there, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's in there. Okay, sorry.
And Shaniqua, who would like to be here.
On me, I'm sorry. Yeah, we brought all those names up, and Shaniqua as well would be a good reference.
And Peter?
Yeah, I also wanted to bring up the youth idea. I think, if we're going to be talking about the future, we have to involve youth in a really substantial way in the conversation. And so I think I shared with you last meeting that I worked with the YMCA Farm Hub on the naming of Sojourner Truth Day, and they were so into it. So that might be a group to reach out to. They're inspired right now. So
So if, oh, Maria Elena?
Yeah, very quick. I think that because normally these meetings are very short and definitely there is a lot that we would like to go into this discussion. I wanted to suggest maybe we can just write down our proposal, our ideas, and share emails so we can advance something before the next meeting instead of brainstorming during the meeting, because the meeting is flying by very quick, and I'm sure that there are more things, and I would like to honor everybody's time. So I wanted just to propose that if we can write down our ideas and share with everybody, we can keep a conversation beyond the meeting.
That's a great idea. Thanks. You should be chair. Anybody else?
I got the sense that you want to put me on something.
So should we put a deadline and when we should have those comments so we can be prepared for the meeting?
I think, the meeting is scheduled for the Monday before the next commission meeting. So I would say if you could have them to me by the Monday prior to that. So I can put together a document of, thoughts and ideas and then circulate that to everybody, including the people that we're going to invite. Anne?
Yeah, I think the goal should be in this next meeting to get important people there for their feedback and ideas. Remember, we're one city, we're one little city, and the whole nation is going to be applying for these grants. So we really have to come up with the strongest proposal that we think will bring money to Kingston. Because, we can have all the talk in the world about what we'd like to do or what would be nice, but coming up with something really creative, as Ione pointed out, and that really speaks to the whole community is going to be where we should try to head. And I hope we can encourage other groups that also separately want to apply for this, because it's going to happen. It's money. So, encourage everybody to look at our best plan and go forward with that best plan, whether it was what we wanted initially or not. But I think as a community, we've really got to decide what that best idea is.
Okay.
And I just had one other question. I'm sorry. I can't remember, Ward, when you sent the original document, which I have, were there examples of people that already, I know there are examples of what communities have done with monuments, but have there been awards issued so far? That we
I
can
want
look
to
at
say yes, but I can't tell you for
so we
sure.
can see
Yes.
who got it or whatever, or.
I will send you guys a link to the section on the Mellon Foundation website where it has projects that they have already funded.
Great, thank you.
Yes, may I say, look at Philadelphia, yes, and see what happened in Philadelphia.
Oh, I think that's where they had the kiosks, right? They had, yeah, okay, I think I looked at that.
Where you had seen the kiosks, yes.
Well, they talked about getting input by having kiosks set up.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, anybody else?
Can I say, just as a point of interest,
Sure.
I'm making up for not having been at the meeting, that my great uncle has not a monument, but a plaque in Philadelphia for his house. He was an abolitionist and there's a townhouse there. So if you ever go to Philly, you can see my great uncle's
Wow.
plaque.
What was his name?
His name is William S. Whipper, and he was an abolitionist who actually owned railway cars, and so he was literally working for he owned the Overground Railway, and he and his partners issued many African enslaved Africans to Canada, and so I have a lot of ancestors and relatives up there that I've never met, but yeah, so he was a very interesting Black man, very, very newspapers. He was into nonviolence. His writing was reputed to have influenced Gandhi. I don't have any proof of that, but he did write about nonviolence in relationship to what was going on between whites and enslaved Africans at that time.
His name was, what was his last name again? Whipper?
Whipper, Whipper, William S. Whipper, abolitionist.
How amazing.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, I just had to tell you that.
Well, it's pretty cool. So,
It's cool, yeah.
I think we kind of covered, is there anything else on the Academy Green that anybody would like to talk about? No? Okay.
I had one question. Wasn't there a committee about that for to research it, or did we sort of just say we would just talk about it as a commission? I'm just can't remember.
I have one thing that might be helpful for that. As I mentioned in the email before our meeting, we do have an intern at the Department of Art and Cultural Affairs, Maya Frieden from BARD, who is with us on this call today. So one of the things that I thought would be really helpful for Maya as they get started on just doing a few other things for departmental support, I thought doing a bit of research on Academy Green and some of the figures that are there might be a really great place, a good kind of starting project there. So that's one of the things that Maya and I are going to have weekly check-ins. So that's one of the first research-driven things I thought Maya could get started working on. So if there is anyone who has specific questions for things they're curious and learning more about, if you want to communicate with me or maybe just even pop some things in the chat, I can start compiling some things. I wanted to keep it pretty simple to start with, just because as we know, there's kind of layers there. But I thought a good place to start would just to collect some information on each of the figures that are represented there now. So that way we kind of have that together. So just putting that out there.
Right.
I also think, Lynn, by amassing this larger committee, that that's what we're going to be, that will be part of what will inform us for creating this blurb for applying for this grant.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Addie, master plan.
All right. So we have touched back in post winter holiday break, and we're kind of on the ground. So the most recent development is what I shared with you the other day, which is the draft for the economic impact analysis. So that is not necessarily going to be the center of the State of Culture event, but it's definitely going to impact what we talk about. So, I think one of the things that we were all really excited to know more about was to get a document like this, just so that we have some more data that we can share as we apply for grants as we move forward. So excited that we have a draft of that. I do, really think that like I kind of mentioned in the email, I just want to make sure that, we take our time with making sure that that document feels readable, but that, again, we're not sacrificing, getting into more details. We don't want it to be so simplified that we're not getting what we need out of it. So John Stover and Associates is ready for feedback. I do think that written feedback has proven to be a little bit more helpful. So I know that's a little bit of an additional step, but I'm also more than happy to hop on a phone call or a Zoom call with anybody who would like to kind of go over some of their comments in more detail. There is a asset inventory list that we're all putting together too. So I think the entries right now are at, I believe we're at 300 plus entries at the moment. So we're just going through all of those entries and making sure that everything is up to date. We're also trying to figure out how we deal with COVID closures, just because, most of our data is from 2019, 2020. So as we come into 2021, we're just kind of figuring out how that impacts the data. So that's kind of my update for that. The other exciting thing is the State of Culture event itself, which is scheduled for the 9th of February. I spoke to Frank Waters, and we're going to be included on the Black History Month calendar. So that's a little bit of an extra push there. We're recording promos for Radio Kingston. I'm hoping to go on a few shows to kind of talk a little bit about the State of Culture event. So I sent out an agenda for everyone to kind of take a look at. And so the way that Newburgh did this event is going to be a little bit different from our event, because Newburgh's cultural plan is different from ours, because they're stopping at this point. So their cultural summit is what they called it, was a little bit more grand, because that was their finale, and that's it. And they're not going any further. Their plan just kind of structured a little bit differently than ours. And that's just due to the fact of they just have a different kind of capacity. They don't have a formal department head, that kind of thing. So when we spoke to Lord, we thought it would be beneficial, since a lot of the feedback was that folks wanted a longer time to have conversations. We thought it might be beneficial to try to be focused on the conversations so that people felt that they had more time. And to just make sure that we could continue to have those conversations that I felt have been really rich. We had our final workshop about a week ago, and it went incredibly well. It was a really great conversation. So very happy about that. A lot of sharing, which I thought was really wonderful, very organic conversations happening. So right now, Lord is essentially compiling their first, all of the information that they've taken in over the past few months. And there should have a presentation ready for us on the 21st of January, so that we can just kind of review and make sure things feel good. Probably the most important part of the State of Culture is, one, it's a community event for folks to come and kind of learn more about the planning process. And the more we reaffirm that, I think the better it is to kind of help demystify cultural planning altogether. But the other thing that comes out of that is that the community starts being welcomed into that idea of the task forces, which is going to be really critical to how we as a community start figuring out how we're going to actualize. So I am looking forward to folks learning a little bit more about that. I know there were a lot of people who were really interested in participating in the plan. So this is kind of the perfect moment for that. So there's more space for people to join in. I think it'll also be interesting to see what the results of the polls are, because, we all know that we have our own goals and wants and desires for, primary functions of the plan and what we focus on. But we do want to make sure that we're taking community input and making sure that this plan is working for, everyone, and that a lot of different thoughts and concerns are taken in. So I think the State of Culture is going to be a nice way to kind of just reinvigorate some energy. One of the things that we are trying to figure out is we do need to figure out our how we're going to do the art slideshow. That was one thing that Lord suggested, that, because there is since we're going to have some more participants, the breakout groups are going to take a little bit more time to coordinate. So their suggestion was to create a slideshow of different artists, arts offerings, events, that kind of thing. And I think between all of us, especially here, but between PAC, KAC, I think we should be able to come up with some really strong imagery. And I think it would be a nice way to show some of the different artists that are making things in Kingston. I thought it might be, I was going to extend an olive branch to Friends of Historic Kingston too, and see if they maybe wanted to have a slide about some of the historic, just to kind of have that overlap. I really want to make sure that we see some really exciting visual art see if we can get some art from youth. So we just need to kind of do a little like image collection, and then Lord is going to put it all together for us. So all we have to do is procure the images. And then if possible, if we can find some music, that's always helpful to put in the background. So that's something else to take into consideration.
Maybe Peter Wetzler would
I know, I'm like,
do a little something.
I think it's it's definitely a good opportunity too, to just kind of like, welcome folks in, just make it feel like a celebration, make it feel like a positive thing. And so once we get through the State of Culture event, which will be the week of our commission meeting, we can have a little bit of a debrief, I think, at the commission meeting, but we'll be scheduling another KAC PAC meeting after that, just to go over things and kind of talk about our next steps after that. So the State of Culture is kind of a good moment for us because it allows us to kind of read the room a little bit and take the temperature and see what people's reactions are. Are we getting this right? Are we approaching? And then it's just revisions, and putting together that final document. The one nice benefit of the State of Culture event is that we do have a more formal partnership for language needs now at the city. So we are hoping to have live interpretation available during the State of Culture event. We do have to figure out if there are interpreters available to participate in the breakout conversations. So that's the only thing we're still working on clarifying. And then, just making sure that that runs really smoothly. That's kind of where we're at. It's really nice that we have the Envision Kingston project that just happened as well, because that's kind of like another big cultural celebration. So we trying to figure out if we can find a way to incorporate that, make some links available to people so that people that join in kind of have like more spaces that they can go to. So that is what I have for Arts and Culture Update.
Great, thank you. Ward?
I'm sorry to ask this question now, but I thought it'd be interesting to have others hear it. I was impressed by the economic analysis report. The one thing that confused me is why houses of worship were included. And because once I hear the justification, I'm very interested. I don't want people to dismiss the report because they're going to say, oh, well, it's all about houses of worship. It's not about the arts.
Yeah, I think, especially in Kingston, I think spaces of worship offer a lot of cultural resources just in terms of space. New Progressive Baptist, Temple Emmanuel, United Methodist, like there are just so many different things that occur in those spaces that I think it would be difficult not to include them. And we do have a considerable number of them, which I think is interesting because it does kind of, I think it's interesting to see when you see it all laid out, when you're thinking about, the next steps and people that we can potentially collaborate with. When you see that gigantic number, it does make you, and then you see other lists of things that are a little bit shorter. I do think it kind of puts into perspective where the priorities have been. And I definitely know that for all of the other cultural planning projects that Lord has done, they're really mindful about including the houses of worship, because sometimes those spaces can be really siloed, whether it's because of ideology or things like that. But they've found that they can be particularly helpful in terms of space and also as an organizing tool, because they have connections to groups of people. So that's the justification from me. I can also talk to John Stover a little bit more deeply if we want to kind of get even more into the.
I think you're making a lot of sense. I think that what it may require is a sentence or two in the report to just briefly explain why they're there.
Okay, yeah. I think context is going to be critical. And we kind of, that was one of our first feedbacks was like, okay, you need to have a glossary. Like we
Yeah,
need to
well,
have.
because people who are anti-religion you don't want them to dismiss the report,
Okay,
except when you
absolutely.
say, but think about that space at the XYZ church. That's a fantastic place,
Okay, so clarify inclusion of house of worship or the spaces of worship. I
Well,
think,
I mean, also, houses of worship all have places for performance.
No, exactly. But
yeah.
when I thought about it, I thought you're including them because they're cultural. I don't know.
Maria
Right.
Elena?
No, that's
Yeah, I think that definitely they belong to the cultural realm. And for instance, the big absent in all this is the Hispanic community, and the only places for the Hispanic culture to really have something are the house of worships, or at least, so far here in Kingston is some of the Spanish speaking churches. And I wanted to make another note for the report. I was reading that, and obviously I'm not an economist, and there is a moment when I was reading about this implant and the NAICS code and things like that. I don't know what the hell they go to those numbers. Those numbers sounds very impressive, but for instance, on page number 6, when they talk about fiscal impact, they talk about Pennsylvania. And it sounds like a copy paste that, we all do that. So, but it gave me like, so how accurate those numbers are? I
Right.
have no idea how we can come out with those numbers, but that sounds, at least to me, beyond what we actually see when we go to these events, when we I don't know, it's just that sounds weird to me. So I don't know if anybody has any idea of how can we, I don't know, contrast those numbers or something, or what, but definitely please don't keep Pennsylvania there, because then the whole thing goes to a different place.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's one of the things working with like a national global firm is that they're kind of looking at this, sometimes they don't take into consideration how things like that impact a reader, especially for us, because we're in a situation where we're in a state where we have a lot of different, New York State is one of those states where there are so many different, you plop a pin down one area, you're in like rural New York, other spaces you're in a global city. So, you really have to make sure that those things are lining up and that all of the parallels that you're drawing make sense for somebody who's reading it from a specific perspective. And I think for us, just as we kind of, want to make sure that this is like focused on where we're at. And another thing about the numbers too is that's one of the reasons why we've been taking so much time with the asset inventory. We did get about 26 people who entered their own information into the cultural asset inventory, and the rest of it we're kind of having to put together ourselves. So like I said, it's a hefty list, and just going through and making sure that everything is up to date has been one of the big tasks for it. Because it's kind of in a little bit of like a shorthand, I've been a little hesitant to share it out, just because it's not like, when I share it with you all, I want it to be like beautiful. So once we get that in like a better situation, I do really want to share it with you all and the PAC members, just to see if there's any additional information you can put on there, if there are things that don't make sense. So that's definitely coming soon. And I think that'll help give context to some of the numbers too about where we're getting things. So just want to make sure that that's on y'all's radar.
I realize that this may be a little late, but I noticed in the report that there was no mention of festivals. And I mean, there's a lot of festivals in Kingston that aren't necessarily associated with an organization. That, I mean, it may be too late to incorporate that, but it's worth a look at.
Right. I think when we were talking about festivals, one of the things that John was super specific about And this is something that came up because we were talking a little bit about full-time employment versus part-time employment versus volunteer. That was something that Ruth Ann and I mentioned, was that we have a really strong volunteer population with the specific economic analysis system that they're using. They're really focusing on jobs, which is again something that we've been having a conversation about, is that, while a volunteer position might not necessarily be connected to a salary, it still has an impact on
An economic impact.
Exactly. So that's one of the things that we're kind of clarifying. John has definitely said that he is very impressed with our diligence, that we're really going through this and, tailoring this plan to what makes sense for us. So the more feedback like that I get and can share with them, it really helps reinforce the conversations that we're having, because it shows that there are more people thinking this. So definitely want to make sure that we get all of those comments to John, so that he can incorporate that into the next draft, because I think it's super important to just kind of like really reinforce that we need that. So appreciate
And I'll
that.
put
The
that
last
into-
thing, sorry, Susie, the last thing that I saw eventually, to, the little detail, when they named streets in Uptown, that they talk about First Street and then Front Street. I'm assuming that is North Front.
Yeah.
Okay, just, those little things.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'll put my comments into an email that's more detailed for
Yes.
them too. Yeah.
That'll be super helpful, because then that we can just make those punch lists and just send them over to them and just have them go through. And like I said, that idea of reinforcing our comments is super important, because the more voices that are saying that, I mean, again, I'm more than happy to champion, but I do think one of the strengths of our work on this plan is that we're a larger group. So when we have things like this come up, it comes across really strong when there are things that we need to have happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Susie,
Peter?
I'm sorry. Sorry, Addie, were you done with your report?
Yes, the only other thing I was going to say is for State of Culture, we are putting together a press release, Facebook event, all the stuff that's happening. If you could possibly, when all this information goes out, if you guys, if you all could possibly share the event and everything with your colleagues, folks that are in Kingston, the more people that are there, the better. So this is really a big push. And so we've had, honestly, we've had incredible attendance for city workshops. So shout out to the Arts and Culture Master Plan. But, the more folks that are there, this is a really public facing event. So, I really think it's important to make sure that our outreach is super strong. I'm doing my part in terms of, doing my individual reach outs. But, I think one thing that really sends a strong message again is when there are multiple voices kind of lifting up this project. A forward of the email, a share on Facebook, inviting people to the event a little bit really goes a long way. So I would appreciate any of that. I know there's a lot on people's fates, but I'm happy to help any way I can too. So.
Peter?
Susie, sorry, I have to jump in just a couple minutes, but there was just a quick thing that I would throw in here just to get people thinking about it. Can I do that?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm totally in love with the new trail that goes along the Hudson River. Has everybody been to the Hudson
Yep.
Brickyard Trail yet?
You
So
photographed quite nicely there.
it's so beautiful. And they're in the process of still taking surveys from the public about what this space should be about. And I really would love for us to be proactive about bringing the arts into the conversation. So I know that they're in the process of updating their online survey. So it's through Scenic Hudson, and I can talk to Riley and get the actual link and everything like that. But I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was important to be at the front end of the conversation rather than have it be an afterthought of why aren't there any cool sculptures here or what's going on. So I just wanted to throw that in before I jump.
Great, thank you. Lynn, do you want to talk about pursuing a survey on the pandemic?
Yeah, well, it was just a thought. I don't know, I guess I read somewhere that a city was doing that, or maybe it was an article in the New York Times, but it seemed that at some point, it would make sense perhaps to conduct a survey on how the pandemic is affecting artists and people in the arts. I mean, there's been a lot in the New York Times about this in the city, and I know Cuomo just unveiled a whole program, but I just thought maybe that would be of value to find out how people are affected, which I would assume pretty seriously in terms of building support, for possible funding or help.
That's something that we talked about a lot on the Hudson Valley Arts Organization's organizing calls that happen every month. And those are organized through Mount Trump for Arts. And one of the things that they did, sorry, I have to admit someone. One of the things that they did suggest was just being really mindful about the language, because one of the conversations that came up was that most of the time when you're doing that survey, there can sometimes be the thought that there is funding available. So just to be really mindful of just being clear that this is a needs assessment, that there isn't any funding connected to this, because sometimes folks are like, oh, well, if you're doing the survey and we're taking the time, what's kind of coming from it. So that was one of the conversations that we had.
Have they done a survey? I mean, has that group done a survey for the region, or?
I think that was one of the reasons why they were hesitant to do that. They were promoting the what is American for the Arts Impact Survey that went out, and kind of driving folks to use that as, their national organization, that kind of thing. I don't see a problem with putting together a needs assessment or like a just kind of impact assessment survey. It's not, if you guys want to put together the questions and put that all together, then I'm happy to see if we can input it into SurveyMonkey. That's kind of where my that's kind of like what I can offer right now in terms of time. If it's, I think we're kind of trying to stay away from doing Google Forms right now for city stuff. So if you all want to do it outside of city things, then there's definitely more options for that. But if we're going to do it from the city, we're trying to either use, the SurveyMonkey, and that generally has to be done through summer. So it would just require like just a list of questions.
And Addie, where is that sent out to then? I mean, how is that distributed?
I mean, that would be up to the commission.
I mean,
to figure out.
It's obviously an online format. It would be Facebook or.
Yeah, it would be the traditional, like, we could probably put out a survey about it. But again, I do think we should just be mindful about what we want to gather that information for.
Of course. But if we did decide, so it could be Facebook, the Engage Kingston site.
Yes, I haven't done a survey through Engage Kingston because we decided to do ours through Lord's SurveyMonkey because it was just easier for them to do that. So that would be something that we'd probably have to have a conversation with Ruth Ann about how we make that work and just figuring out what that looks like.
Right. Well, I guess my first question is, what do other people feel about this? I would be happy to draft some questions, but if the commission supports this, I don't know how other people feel about it.
I can weigh in. So that survey that the group that Addie mentioned kind of turned into it was not really useful because of the way they asked the questions. So what Addie is saying is really very true. You have to be careful how you word things and what kind of information you're trying to get out of a survey. I think they did it in, a very good faith gesture. They were trying to, pull together some information, but, there's that question again, like, where is this information going to be taken and how is it going to get used? And I know that, I've gotten, I think, 3 surveys from Americans from the Arts because they did an initial one and then they sent them back out again to revise it and then again to revise it. So I thought that survey was actually a very potent thing because they were going back to the same people and, like a couple of months later and then a couple of months later. I think the challenge in Kingston, from my perspective, is that there's a lot of artists that are independent artists. And, you know, that's who we know. So how would we gather all those emails? And I know just from running Art Walk Kingston, trying to get surveys back from artists is it's almost impossible.
Right. And I guess you're also saying, you know, what is the point of it? I mean, yeah, we'll find out, but we can't really offer money. So maybe it would be more meaningful if it was tied to some kind of goal. Or how-
Yes,
And sort of
Yes.
just a vacuum to find out. That totally makes sense.
yeah.
I will definitely say, just through trying to get the survey out for the Arts and Culture Master Plan, it is a big lift to put it together. You know, we've been trying to push that survey out really hard. And, you know, even with things like QR codes and stuff like that, it's just getting people to follow through. Our cultural survey is also a little bit long, just because we wanted to make sure we were asking as many questions as we could to get that information back. There are a lot of surveys going out right now. I think one thing that could be helpful, you know, I think definitely speaking to individual artists is going to be incredibly important, because I know a lot of people are struggling right now. But it might also be beneficial to see if we could organize, just as a starting point, so that it's not just the Arts Commission making the lift, or myself, or, you know, those spaces, maybe seeing if we can get a meeting of some arts organizations to come together to talk a little bit about their challenges. I think talking and speaking to one another is also a good way to understand a little bit about the struggles people are facing. And I think it would be a good way to, you know, kind of increase that communication that we're wanting to have. So we could try something like that as a starting point too. And then there might be some folks who can offer different resources that could help us work towards that survey. So that's my suggestion.
I'm curious,
like
has MAD done anything in this regard? Have there been conversations at board meetings about the impact?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely talk about it, and I'm thinking about it right now. It just hasn't been formalized in any kind of way. But Lynn, I do think, and I'm sorry I was gone for a while, I have broken Wi-Fi here at work, which rarely happens, and that's usually why I have the meetings here. But anyway, it's a big topic, and it would make a great story, Lynn. I mean, I almost could see you starting it.
Right. Maybe I should write an article about it. Start with that.
Well, that's what I mean.
Notes, which-
And then maybe we could link something up where, and I'll talk to Rick about this, where people could go to an online place and actually put what it's meant to go through COVID. And actually, usually when we have board meetings, at the end of them, we ask each person, what has it been like for you going through this? And it's very informative, not just on a personal level, but with really creative people. You know, a lot of creative people have found new ways of expressing themselves. It's not all been dark. There've been a lot of silver linings.
Right. I know when I talked to Greenkill Gallery, they're having success. I think I mentioned this before, and when I interviewed them about the online, you know, they're getting so many more people online for their performances than they can get inside. So that's a good idea. I think I should just pursue that journalistically.
Yeah.
And then I don't think it would be difficult to do that. And then I could work with you and for MAD
I'd
in the
love that.
follow-up. We
I
could put it on the MAD site and then follow up. That would be great. Because I think it's anecdotes that are powerful.
I think it's part of history, actually, and this time will pass, but this has been a very intense experience for all of us. And we've gone through all kinds of emotions, good, bad, beautiful, you know, ugly, you know, the whole gamut. And, you know, going through COVID on top of all the political angst is, it's more than a lot of people can really cope with. So I think it would be wonderful to document this from a creative point of view.
Right. Okay. So I'll follow up in the next month with my editors and then follow up with you.
I love it. I think it's a great idea.
Thanks for that
Yeah.
suggestion.
Well, it comes from you.
But I mean, you made it into something more meaningful than just a survey. So thanks.
So Addie, did we want to hear from Garrett?
Garrett, are you there?
Hello, hi, I am here. Hi, thank you for having me so much. My name is Garrett Sager. I am the digital marketing assistant at the Fisher Center at Bard. And I'm here to talk about a couple of different things, two things. One, to just introduce myself as a representative of Fisher Center, Bard as a whole. Alessandra Larson is the director of development. She was unfortunately not able to attend this meeting today. She had a last minute conflict, and so I am here representing both of us. But we are your two contacts at the Fisher Center. We are really hoping to find specific ways that the Fisher Center can connect with the Kingston community and vice versa. I am going to send our emails here as well. For contact. One of the reasons, so a project this month that we're hoping to that we have produced in the fall and is continuing into the spring is a project by the R&B artist Michelle Indegliacello, who is also a Hudson resident, Chapter and Verse, The Gospel of James Baldwin. It is a digital version of a stage production that Michelle was the composer and performer for. You can explore it here. And really what it is a, oops, let me make that. Get you to do a H. There we go. So that the project really is, it has these is three components. It's inspired by James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time, and it has three different components, call, see, and read. All of them are free invitations. The call is a phone line that has original compositions by Michelle and other artists, designed to be, 4 to 5 minutes of healing. They're really, really special. See, there are visual testimonies created by Michelle and some of the other artists involved in the project, and broadsheets. There are these great visual pieces with illustrations of James Baldwin. The most recent iteration has a really great illustration of Audre Lorde. They're filled with things like words of James Baldwin, words by Michelle. There's also words by, the most recent iteration, there's words by Patrisse Cullors, who is one of the originators of the Black Lives Matter movement. There's a recipe for bone broth in one of them. There's a really great variety of them. So we, Alessandra and I, so these both are available as digital PDFs. This read element of the project are available as digital PDFs, but we also, in September when we began the project, we offered it we created a sign up list for folks to, for our followers and we have co-commissioners in Chicago, Los Angeles, other arts presenters, and they all had their own respective sign-up lists, and we have a surplus of some printed broadsheets, and we are hoping to get them out into different communities because they are still really great, really relevant materials. I'm going to share them here, some links to the PDF versions of them. Those are there. So there are 4 different broadsheets that Alessandra and I both have stacks of, and we really want these to get out into the community because they're just sitting in our homes right now, and they are really, really special teaching materials, great resources, especially as we head into Black History Month next month. I think these could be really excellent resources. We have collaborated with some of the Bard early colleges, one in Hudson. We've also collaborated with Bard at Simon's Rock in Great Barrington, Mass. And they've used these as really great resources for their students. And so we're hoping to distribute these in Kingston. We're happy to come bring them, but we need some direction. I think I or maybe my colleagues have reach out to some of you to try and maybe find spaces to display these, to have them maybe at the Kingston Library, other places where there is some foot traffic. It's a difficult time for foot traffic, but some place where these can be just shared and with the intention of them going out. So I know it's a lot, and I know I just kind of brought in a lot of energy, but I am really excited about this project. And these broadsheets are amazing. They are really gorgeous. I have some copies, but I think thinking of the draw, yes, they're gorgeous illustrations. They can be displayed on bulletin boards, but they're also, we have them all in shrink wrap. Not shrink wrap, sorry. We have them all in plastic wrapping to distribute, and we still have a good amount of them, and we would like these to get out into the hands of a lot of community members, and we would love for this to maybe be the start of or continuation of our work trying to connect with Kingston and the community. So
Great.
thank you very much.
Yeah, I think the more that we can collaborate with BARD, I think, that it takes 10 minutes for me to get there.
Right.
It's really not far at all. And now we have a intern, which I'm segueing now to introducing Maya. If you would like to show yourself and say a few words.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm a junior at Bard, so that was definitely exciting to hear Fisher Center. I was like, Fisher Center. But yeah, I study art history and visual culture, particularly architecture and architectural history. So I'm really excited to be here, and it's been really cool listening in on all the work that's being done in Kingston, and that's exciting to me that you guys are looking to work more with Bard. So happy to represent Bard, at least part of it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both, and we'll continue this collaboration with BARD, and hopefully we can build a really nice linkage between the two, between the commission and BARD College. Okay,
Susie?
Yeah?
Garrett, are you asking for suggestions, like where to put the broadsheets, or you already know where you're gonna, do you want anything from us specifically?
Suggestions would be wonderful. We're happy. I still have a stack and would be happy to drive to Kingston and bring some.
So an email would be helpful if we have ideas about where you can put them. That would be helpful.
Okay. Yes, definitely. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other new business, old business? I do have a little bit of news. Dennis Connor's retrospective will be at Ask in August, and I had a meeting with the mayor on Monday. Addie, you would thank you for pushing, and there will be an accompanying exhibition of outdoor sculpture in Block Park.
Great.
So we're gonna, do a little fundraising. There's gonna be a catalog, and I think that it will be an exhibition for a very deserving family and individual who did a lot to help the arts in Kingston. So,
Great.
Anybody else?
I did have a thought about that. Just as we're putting together those images for the State of Culture slideshow, I didn't know if we wanted to maybe give a special shout out to Denny Connors, maybe Todd Samara, just to kind of recognize that moment. I didn't know if that was something people were interested in. So if that's anything that folks are interested in pursuing, I think that might be kind of a nice thing that we could do, a shout out. Also kind of remembering, just being mindful. Was something I was thinking. So just putting that out there.
Lynn?
So would you want me to forward you some photographs of Todd?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And also Ben Wigfall, right? You already have him on your list.
That's
Yes.
You're right.
Have kind of like I think that could be really sweet, and make it feel a little bit personal.
any woman that can be included in that list. I mean, I don't have anything against guys, but you know, a little bit of balance. Do we have any?
Marcus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No.
You wanna
She-
do,
But what about, sorry,
Pauline? Is
yeah,
that-
Pauline Ione. How about
Pauline.
Ione, there you are.
Ion's still with us.
I
I'm,
know, I alive.
I'm here. But I think
Stay there, stay there.
really, I really, that's a great endeavor. Yeah, Pauline, I think we can definitely should have a
Pauline, yeah,
shot.
we've got some great shots of the two of you.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be really,
I'd love to share it.
really good. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think that could be a really sweet moment in that. Yeah, I will work diligently upon that. All right.
Ione, did you want to say something else?
Oh, I just was going to mention that the Dream Festival, my 26th annual Dream Festival, is happening again in Kingston and throughout the world. I'm just going to put I don't know if it'll fit in here. I'll send you the information, the calendar of events, but I just want to give you just a hint of what's coming. So the Dream Festival is really my understanding of dreams as one of the most democratic aspects of humanity, that we all dream, and even animals and babies and all cultures have dreams, and they're a deepest source of creativity for the arts. So the festival through the years has had gallery openings, has had performance, has had readings. This year we're opening with Susie Ibarra's Talking Gong recordings. It's like a launch with the Composers Now Festival in New York, collaborating on that. And Susie is local. She's international, but she's local, living in New Paltz now. So she can do a lot of things with us. And there's a beautiful video that's going to be shown and for about a week. We'll be also doing overnight dreaming. This year we have a dream sack in which you can place your dreams. We will be connecting to pet wonderful dreams, good dreams, Martin Luther King dreams. We'll also be connecting to pandemic dreams. So there are many different forms of the ways that dreams are interacting with us and we with them at this time. We're going to honor that. We're reviving our virtual gallery that we used to have at Deep Listening Space. In addition to real walls, we had Art on the Wall, which was a digital gallery. So this is, women are invited in the community of women that I've been working with for a number of years. Kingstonians, Parisians, Julie Hedrick will be there, you know, people from different countries, all female artists, very, very different. It should be quite wonderful to have it. And that'll be available to watch. All these will have opening watch parties. So there'll be Eventbrite, but free. Everything's free.
What's the date on it?
So it starts on the February 6th and goes to March 31st. So we have a Black Priestess roundtable and readings. We're also at the Idea Garden. We are collaborating with them. Readings, discussions on womanhood, ancestry, color, heritage, and more. And then after the Dream Festival, we have a birthday party, speaking of Pauline, and Ione at the Deep Listening Plaza. We're going to do a big piece of Pauline's involving the neighborhood, international people, artists performing. It's called The Witness, and it can go on for a month or two if we wanted to. But those dates are already set. So And then Susie has an app which is called the Medina of Fez. And I'm projecting for real summer, like June, the Deep Listening Plaza, City of Kingston launching Medina of Fez. So it's Morocco and Kingston. So it means that we would pair places and things in Fez and Morocco with historical places and things happening in Kingston. And it could be, there could be food involved. Oh, it could be really fun.
Oh, yeah, Moroccan food.
Yeah, so
Mm.
so those are some of the things, and I'll send all this to you right in a few minutes, so you'll have it.
Great. Well, that sounds good. I guess it's time for us to say goodbye. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, anybody second?
I'll second it.
Anybody want to stay on?
Who's-
Make it sound appealing.
Can